Thank you so much for having me here today. It is a really special moment for me to be able to speak to you all about wellness, leadership, and empowerment, especially since my life experiences have really taught me the true meaning of these words. The end of my second year of medical school, which was about 9 years ago, was one of the lowest points in my life. The stress of medical school and other personal issues was really taking a mental toll on me. I wasn't eating well, I couldn't sleep at night, I just wasn't myself. My panic disorder and generalized anxiety disorder was at its worst, to the point I became agoraphobic, which means you fear and avoid places or situations that might cause you to panic and make you feel trapped, helpless, or embarrassed. Agoraphobia had confined my world to my home. I remember feeling an intense sense of fear when leaving my house, driving, being in open spaces, in crowded places, and many other situations. I would get hot and shake, and my heart would race. My muscles would all tighten up, and I would have feelings of depersonalization, which was probably the worst symptom for me. Depersonalization is a feeling of unreality where you feel disconnected from the world and your body. It's almost like you're in a dream. Even within my own home, I would feel fear, which perhaps some of you may experience, but for those of you who do not, can you imagine that? I mean, with quarantine happening, maybe you can. But it was like my world was closing in, and when it was evening time, I would just retract to my room where I felt the safest. My room was my comfort zone where I would spend a lot of my time until one night I was just sitting on my bed reading a book when I suddenly felt a pang of fear run through my body and my heart start racing, and I felt like I was falling. I started to scream for help, and I banged on my nightstand to feel grounded. I rushed downstairs, my body shaking, to tell my parents that I was losing it and to please help me. My poor parents, worried sick, hurried me to the emergency room. But it did not make sense. I have a supportive home. Why was I feeling this way? That night, as I lay on the hospital bed, I felt so scared that even my comfort zone was not safe anymore. The place where I felt the most secure turned out to be the place where I had a panic attack. Where was I to go? Where could I feel safe? Even though that was a very difficult night, I had a huge epiphany after that. I realized that there was no such thing as a safe zone. Even if I was, if nowhere was safe, then everywhere was safe. I concluded that feeling safe was not connected to my physical location, but rather my state of mind. And I could find peace within myself. I was looking for security elsewhere when I needed to become patient and search for it within myself. So, how many of you have made decisions due to the fact that it was a safe choice? Well, I chose medical school because it was a safe option for me. To become a doctor and a great leader was always my dream. Ever since I was a child, I knew I was going to be a doctor, whether it was the natural influence of my dad being a physician or the outside pressure and expectations from the South Asian community. It was just settled. My desire to help people, my natural inclination towards leadership and being a support to others. I felt that being a physician was my only path. However, when anxiety became debilitating and I found myself struggling mentally, emotionally, and physically, I felt that dream slipping away. But I pushed forward. I had to start learning to not only support others, but also support myself. After a few more emergency room visits due to severe panic attacks, my parents pleaded that I drop out of medical school and focus on my health. They also advised me to consider a different career path. Although I refuted my parents in the beginning, eventually I recognized that maybe being a physician wasn't the right path for me and that I needed to let that dream go. I'll be honest, it was one of the hardest decisions of my life, and I felt like a complete failure. I felt my whole world crumbling around me. I sensed that I let myself down, and worse, I felt like I let my parents down, even though I know they did not feel that way. That was a very depressing time in my life, and as I tackled feelings of failure and uncertainty, I felt so lost. I always had a vision in mind, I always knew what I was going to do, and now all of a sudden, I had no idea where I was going. Nonetheless, my aspiration to help people was still there, and I had faith that I could turn things around. I continued therapy. I was on medications as well. I began to work out frequently, eat healthy, and work on my sleep hygiene. I basically worked on rudimentary lifestyle changes to improve my life and my own health. Additionally, I started meditating and praying more. I looked inward and turned towards my faith for guidance. In the Quran, it says, "Verily, with hardship, there is relief," which gave me the power to carry on. All these changes had a drastic impact on my overall wellness. Meanwhile, I chose to do my master's in Industrial Organizational Psychology, which is a study of human behavior relating to work. I dropped out of medical school in March and I started my master's in May. I was determined. And after 9 years of battling with anxiety and panic disorder, I finally was off my medications and I felt like my old self again. I regained that freedom that anxiety had once stolen from me. In 2018, I went on to do a TEDx talk on overcoming anxiety. I stood on a stage in front of hundreds of people talking about my most vulnerable moments. And I will admit that was not easy. I was shaking and nervous and anxious, but I got through it. However, I was deeply humbled by the positive response that I received. I got hundreds of messages from people all around the world, and I still do to this day, who expressed that my talk not only helped them, but also served as a source of hope and inspiration for them. And that meant more to me than anything. At that moment, I truly realized that I was fulfilling my life's purpose and that my previous view of helping people was so narrow. I thought I had to be a doctor in order to help people. But the reality is there's so many ways to serve people. And what is this path but another one that heals those I can touch? This actualization led me to continue being an advocate for anxiety and break the stigma. We need to address these issues rather than hiding from them and begin to take actions towards solutions. I want to give a voice to those who have none, to those who are afraid to get help or share with their loved ones for being seen as weak. I want to normalize speaking about our struggles and mental health. So I went on to write a book about work-related stress and general stress, and ultimately how you can become more productive when you learn to navigate these stressors. My book is expected to publish in April 2021, inshallah, and my hopes are that this book will empower those who grapple with high levels of stress and in life. Simon Sinek, one of the most influential voices in the leadership world, said, "The single most valuable thing you will ever learn in your life is to accept help when offered and to ask for help when you know you can't do it." Wellness can mean helping others and accepting help when needed. We cannot deny the pain we experience. We must confront it and work towards betterment. Try this the next time you're feeling anxious. Compliment someone and say, you could say, "Oh, wow, you have a beautiful smile or eyes," or "I love your energy." And just notice a shift in your mindset and mood. This works for me all the time. Many of the accomplishments people acquire come as a result of a personal crisis. And that was the case with me. My idea of what a leader looks like dramatically changed as I gained more knowledge and life experiences. Now, let me ask you this. What do you think of when you think of a leader? What image comes to your mind? Let me guess, a CEO, president, maybe a doctor? But researchers have found that 30% of leaders get into a leadership position based on their age, sex, race, and attractiveness. But leadership has nothing to do with your job title or your genetics. It comes from within. When you think of a leader, you probably think of an extrovert as well, which is true. They are more likely to get leadership positions, even though introverts are likely to make better leaders because they tend to be better listeners. They spend more time self-reflecting and preparing, which are all important characteristics of a good leader. Psychologist Tim Judge found that altruistic, empathetic, and sociable people are likely to make better leaders, but less likely to be chosen to lead. When many think of leaders, they seldom think of Islamic women as leaders, but the truth is, Islam gave rights to women back in the time of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam worked for his wife Khadija initially as she was a successful businesswoman, and his wife was actually older than him. In Islamic history, women participated in government, public affairs, and teaching. In Islam, women are encouraged to actively participate in improving, serving, and leading different aspects of their community. It is important not to confuse culture with religion in these matters. There are two quotes that I just love, which I really feel encompass the meaning of a leader. One is from John Quincy Adams, and he said, "If your actions inspire others to dream more, to learn more, to do more, and become more, you are a leader." And the other by Simon Sinek again, "If you decide to look after the person to the right of you and to the person to the left of you, you have become a leader." So tell me this, isn't a mother a leader who puts her child's needs in front of her own? Or a brave high schooler who stands up against injustice, against a schoolmate who's getting bullied? Or a woman breaking the glass ceiling? Now, I'm not trying to discredit leaders and their hard work by giving everyone a participation award. What I'm saying is there is a potential to be a leader in each and every one of you. Leaders have the amazing ability to rally people together and get them passionate about achieving a shared goal. The key to being a good leader is to understanding people and really listening to them. Being a leader is to care for people, knowing how to motivate them, and empathizing with them. Many studies show that emotionally intelligent leaders have teams with higher employment engagement. The day I dropped out of medical school, I would have never imagined myself here giving a keynote speech at a women's leadership conference. I thought I was a failure and far from a leader, but in actuality, there was a better and more fulfilling path for me. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross said, "The most beautiful people we have known are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found their way out of those depths." I never thought that changing career paths would turn out to be one of my biggest blessings. My struggle became my strength and a source of help to others. I turned my pain into purpose. So I challenge you to feel the fear and do it anyway, just like the title of Susan Jeffers' book. Do something today that the future version of you will thank you for and give you a high five. Step outside your comfort zone because that's where the magic happens. As Neil Donald Walsh said, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. I know that many of you may be able to relate to battling with failure, uncertainty, anxiety, and just life issues. But I want you to know that you are not alone. And we are all in this together. You are stronger and more resilient than you can ever imagine. When you feel that there is no hope and no way out, just hang on a little bit longer and look inside yourself for that glimmer of light that just wants you to shine. Years from now, you will look back and see that struggle was actually a blessing in disguise, and you will smile as I'm smiling now, knowing that you persevered and life does get better. A side effect of living is that we will face trials and tribulations, but how we rise up is what will define us. Don't let difficult times discourage you, but rather use that as fuel to catapult you onward and upward. Being brave isn't about facing easy times. It's about facing adversity and coming out the other side. There's a leader in all of you. There's a fire in all of you. And all you have to do is have the courage to light it. Thank you.